This is the James Crepea Show.
We've got a blind date with destiny.
And it looks like she's ordered the lobster.
Oregonian columnist James Crepea.
I had some crackpot dynamite reporter at the first press conference ask me how in the heck we're going to possibly throw the ball when they keep a lid on their covers and who's the best pass rusher you've ever played against.
We're not the favorites. We're the other guys.
KORE 1050 and 95.7. Fox Sports Eugene. Here is the James Crepea Show, presented by Dairy Mart.
Hit the lights and lock the doors. Welcome, everybody, to the James Crepea Show here on Fox Sports Eugene. I am James Crepea, the Oregon Ducks beat reporter for the Oregonian and OregonLive, where you can find all my work covering the Ducks in particular and the work of my colleague, Nick Daschel, and my colleague, John Canzano, who's obviously on here on KORE and Fox Sports Eugene from 12 to 3, also up in Portland, obviously, and Daschel covering the Beavers. We will get to the Ducks and the Beavers over the weekend. Bill Speros, a buddy of mine who presently is with Golf Week but will be joining Gambling.com in a matter of about a week or so. He also does some work for the Boston Herald, given all of the news in the Antonio Brown saga. I wanted to wait until there was a particular Bostonian moment to bring Bill on the program. Bill's a good friend of mine, good professional associate of mine, and when I say that he is peak Boston, you will either, and as a Pacific Northwesterner, you will either very much find him amusing, hate him, but you will be entertained one way or the other. If you can decipher what it is that he's saying, because he starts dropping his ass and he starts talking like, and he gets going.
So you're bringing Peter Griffin on the show. Is what you're
Absolutely.
telling me. And what you're saying is I need to be sitting on the dump button the entire time now.
Little bit.
Lovely.
He does a lot of radio. Bill's a professional, but as a New Yorker and Bostonian going at it in the middle of a Yankee Red Sox game that'll be starting momentarily, that I hope to be able to rib him on a little bit. Yes, but given that the Antonio Brown thing, that's why I'm bringing him on. I wasn't bringing him on because of Yankees Red Sox. I was bringing him on because of Antonio Brown, because we've been talking about him. He sucked up all the air, and then he obviously ends up at the Patriots because of course he does. And Bill was very much relishing that over the weekend. So once I saw that, I said, oh, now we have occasion to bring Bill on. So I just can't wait to hear Bill's, oh, of course, it's going to be great. Tom is going to be all over it. It'll be fine. Belichick doesn't even care. He's fine. It's awesome. We aren't worried. What are you talking about? I'm telling you, that's what it's fantastic. I may start doing Bill while talking to Bill, then it'll just be very fun. So anyway, we'll have Bill on shortly. Nick Daschel at 5:30, and Travis Demers, the new voice of the Portland Trailblazers, will be joining the program later on. But we do start today first, just briefly, because I'm not going to get into all the BS again with Antonio Brown. As I said on Friday, it could change a million times. Lo and behold, it did. You start to hear reports that this was all an orchestrated attempt. So it just shows you exactly how disingenuous and ridiculous and absurd it all was from the jump. I did say also on Friday that, hey, if they fine him additionally, you have to show a level of discipline. Credit to Mike Mayock, because the whole story hadn't gotten out there yet. Credit to Mike Mayock for being exactly the person and the man that everybody expected. To not only fine him and do it for conduct detrimental that voided the guarantees that then ultimately led to Antonio then demanding the release, which, of course, they were going to do at that point. That's what they were all setting up for. That's what he was trying to drive them to do. Why? Who knows? Who cares? Was he just angry because the Steelers dealt him to a team he didn't want to be at? Again, who knows? Who cares? It was all disingenuous. If you believe in the guy, he can be a great player. If you want him on your fantasy team, if you think that now that if you're a Pats fan, and like as Bill is, we'll talk with him about it. And I guarantee he's not worried about the attitude and all the rest, because nobody can bring down the Patriots. But you cannot actually respect Antonio Brown as the human. You can respect him as a player, but after all this is just absurd, what he tried to do here. Absurd. But we end it there because, hey, somebody who's not a clown, somebody who's not disingenuous, somebody who's not all about themselves, benefited. That being Keelan Doss, obviously somebody who, if you watch Hard Knocks, was one of the guys to root for the Raiders. He is somebody who benefited in a big way. The Raiders announced they signed Keelan Doss after releasing him originally. They signed him. So he is the beneficiary of the Antonio Brown saga ending in Oakland. and that being put to bed. But again, we'll chat with Bill Speros at the bottom of the hour about his arrival with the Pats. And, dude, I was at the Super Bowl. The ball was floating, kid. It was floating. I'm telling you, it's going to be.
Are you sure it's either going to be awesome or it's going to be painful?
Bill's terrific. Bill is
Okay.
awesome.
All right.
First, he's awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Now, again, most of our general conversation is going to have to not occur on air because most of our general conversation cannot. It's not radio friendly. I'll just leave it there. But no, it's. He's very amusing. He's very good, and it's the only occasion here where I'm really going to have a chance to bring him on. Unless the Pats get to the playoffs, then we'll bring Bill back on.
Oh no!
And they also open with the Steelers and everything. But look, if Antonio does these antics and he actually gets let go or something, or if he gets into a fight, then we'll bring him on again.
That would be hilarious.
Oh, that's the whole point. So we see what happens with Antonio and everything with Brady. But ultimately, as the season goes on, the Pats are going to make the playoffs because of the Patriots. And if they get to the playoffs, then we'll talk to Bill later on. But he also does work with gambling.com. As I say, he's about to join them in a week. And I know, obviously, Bill over there. I know the head of editorial content for all of North America at gambling.com. He is what you might call the rabbi in the business for me. So I'm very plugged in with those gentlemen. So it was important to bring Bill on.
Gotcha.
See, let's put it that way.
I get you.
Okay, so that's why we're having Bill on. Well, again, we'll get to the Ducks and the Beavers as well. And let's start with the Ducks. And obviously a massacre of a football game. I'm not going to go through the entire box score. We don't have enough time. We're only a 2-hour show. We could take all day. 77 players played. So there is no way that we're going to get through. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Ton of statistics. Pick the category, pick the player. They all pretty much went bananas. Okay, but let's start, obviously, offensively. Outside of the first two drives and Justin Herbert being off by half a step, 1 step, half a second, whatever it was, with a couple of passing routes, and starting 3 of 8. After that, just went on a barrage and absolute carpet bombing of the Nevada secondary, which stood no chance. No chance whatsoever. Not just against Justin Herbert, stood no chance, in particular against the tight ends, including, we would find out on Saturday. Now, granted, this was not a monumental development because Brady Aiello had already changed jersey numbers and was already doing blocking as a tight end in the season opener. So it was like, I guess they could throw it to him in some kind of weird situation. And lo and behold, the occasion arose on Saturday. And here's what Mario Cristobal had to say after the game regarding using Brady Aiello as a receiver.
Well, a couple things. Number one, credit to Brady because Brady is a really good player, and we have to play him, so we use him as a tight end. We use him as a tackle. He swore he was going to catch the ball if we threw it to him. I didn't believe him, so now I'm wrong, and he's right.
And that was one. And he went on to talk about Brady as well. Look, as a former old lineman, that Cristobal was loving it that he got to do. I later followed up with him, and he then said, "Yeah, I'm just jealous of him because he got to do something I never got to do, which is catching a receiving touchdown as an offensive lineman." It's definitely the dream for every one of those guys. Aiello gets it. He joked afterwards. He called his route running sloppy but aggressive. Said he was quite literally lucky to have caught the ball because if you watch the play again, yeah, he kind of was. He bobbles it a little bit. But ultimately, a fine moment for him. Obviously, one of the more memorable ones in a game that obviously had so many points and so many yards. It's like, how did any one of them stand out? Well, when an offensive lineman catches a touchdown, it's a pretty big deal. Nobody lifted Brady Aiello on the post-touchdown celebrations. Nobody.
That would be a little
dared to
difficult.
lift. That's what I'm saying. You didn't get all the other 5 offensive linemen. Didn't build a bridge and try to hoist them up. And he joked that he said before the game, he told Shane Lemieux, who he lives with and is best friends with, that hey, if I catch this ball, let's go over and do the lineman leap deal. But that didn't happen either because obviously since everybody was so jacked up about it, that didn't happen. They just swarmed him, and it became a mob. That being one of the more memorable plays. But Herbert closing 16 of 18, 5 different touchdowns to 5 different players. 14 players catch a pass, 7 catch multiple passes, 11 guys score, including Brady Breeze on defense. The defense absolutely played with its hair on fire. As much offense as there was, and there was a ton, by virtually everybody in a uniform that could play on offense, that was healthy to play on offense. Virtually all of them played. There were only about a handful that either were true freshmen who are very clearly going to be redshirting, and they just didn't get in because they wanted to get more reps to the second and some third teamers rather than the third/fourth teamers at some spots, or guys who were scratched or hurt or whatever. Bottom line, as much as the offense did, and it was a lot, the defense, to me, is what stood out most yet again, because the defense, and I understand perfectly that these non-conference games, these kinds of non-conference games, the Nevadas and Montanas of the world, are the games that the defense gets to pad its stats. Because though I arrived the day before the Stanford game last year, I was still quite familiar with what Oregon was doing in the 3 non-conference games that it had, and they were all pincushions, and they padded their stats accordingly. So the defense got to look like it was better than it actually was for a little while. Here's the difference from last year to this year. There, it was smoke and mirrors. There, it wasn't real. It didn't have lasting power. And that's not a knock on the players who were putting up the numbers originally at all. That is a knock on the former defensive coordinator, because he had no ability to utilize and best utilize the personnel that he inherited and had. And certain guys who he didn't utilize well are standing out very quickly now under Andy Avalos, who's putting these guys in position to succeed. And the thing that stood out to me most by that defense was the energy on the sideline is noticeably different during the games. And not just Saturday, during the season opener as well. The energy on the sideline by the defense and for the defensive players is noticeably higher. Mario spoke about the defense and their role in Saturday's game afterward as well.
They were the determining factor in the swing of momentum, because, you know, after holding them to 3 and then us having that muff punt issue or the fumble punt, right, it skips off one of our players, for them to hold them to 3 there when they had first and whatever down inside our tight red zone, it was awesome. And the most impressive part to me was the fact that the older guys held the younger guys accountable. When the younger guys went in there from snap 40, whatever, to the very end, they made it known that they are held to the same expectation about keeping other people out of the end zone. So, again, credit to, you know, the entire defensive staff and, most importantly, the players. They certainly are coming on. It's coming on strong.
That's a big part of it when Mario's talking about the starting defenders, the veteran defenders in particular, on the starting unit, holding the younger guys. So when he's saying younger guys, he's talking about when the cornerbacks are out and Graham and Lenore off the field and Mikael Wright and DJ James are out there on the outside. And when the defensive linemen rotate and Jordan Scott is off and Drayton Carlberg is off and Austin Fallew is off and Gus Cumberlander and Bryson Young are off. But then you have to put in Brandon Dorless and Christian Williams and Keon Ware-Hudson and Kayvon Thibodeau. And when Isaac Slade Matatia and Troy Dye come out and Samson New comes in and MJ Cunningham come in, when those are the rotations that are happening, those starters are holding their replacements, their backups, and their backup to the backup in some cases, accountable and saying, hey, you're not letting them score. That's not happening. And plenty of teams talk that way, but when it's a 7 and 8 and 9 score football game, pretty hard to pull that off. And credit to that defense, top to bottom, with executing that. And yeah, the score gets away from them. Of course, Nevada called off the dogs too and was doing its thing, but you still had to shut down that run game. That was, statistically speaking, and I understand it's numbers on paper against a group of 5 opponent. This is not Auburn. This is not Michigan State. I perfectly understand what Nevada is. And they may not be as good a team as they were a year ago, frankly, because their defense let up 400 passing yards each of the first 2 games. And we'll see how they stand in the Mountain West. You know, they have some talent. They also have a lot of youth that's clearly learning on the fly. But that was the single most dominant performance on paper by way of yards allowed and points allowed by an Oregon defense in 9 years. They have not had a game where they held the opponent under 200 yards and without a touchdown since the 2010 season when they did it twice to Portland State and New Mexico. Now, those were also lowly opponents, as we know, one of the SCS and one of the Group of Five. So that's where it stands. Obviously, they had a low-scoring game without a touchdown in the bowl game. Obviously, they've had less than 200 yards before a couple of years ago against Wyoming. But they hadn't done both in the same game in 9 years. And then you factor in the tackles for loss and the sacks and just the sheer volume of guys who were contributing. Again, I mentioned Keon Ware-Hudson among them. Mace Funa, another one, guys who were just racking up tackles for losses and sacks. All the sacks were done by guys where it was their first career sack, or in Funa's case, sacks, because he had 2. All for tackles for loss, 2 of which were sacks. Massive contributions by that defense. So to me, the bigger takeaway really was the defense than the offense, because clearly they were going to be the bigger, stronger, and faster team, and the tight ends, including Aiello in this game, were no match. They were simply no match for the interior on the second and third level of the Nevada defense. They couldn't keep up. They had no chance. In a lot of ways, they were wide open targets very, very, very often. In particular, Jake Breland, when he got open over the middle, my goodness. When he found nothing but daylight, you knew it was probably going to be a long day for Nevada when he had a 60-plus yard catch and run. That's wow. That's rough for a Nevada defense.
Was Nevada really that bad of a team, or was it just that great of a performance? Because you had
both.
Nevada came off of a really big upset on the road at Purdue.
It's both. It's both in that, one, it is that dominant performance, especially by the defense, especially by the Oregon defense.
They were in a short field how many times?
Far more so than the Oregon offense. And that's not knocking the offense who put up 70 points.
Right.
I'm saying that the domination was far more so by the defense, because if the offense converted over 50% on third down, then that's the equivalent. And they were a little lower than that. But if they had gone out and just literally just imposed their will on anything, and they virtually did, okay, it's hard to criticize most anything they did offensively. Pretty much most anything they did in the game on any level.
Yeah.
Other than, as Mario mentioned, the inadvertent touch by Hockey Woods on the live ball on the rugby punt early, where he just didn't hear the call from Javon Holland to get away from the ball. Outside of that, there really was virtually no occasion to criticize almost anything that anybody did.
I think there was a little bit of a hangover the first couple series from the Auburn game.
Whether it was
what
that
it felt
or
like.
whether it was just ever so slightly just off. And again, it happens. It can happen in one drive and then not happen again for 4 drives, or it can happen on back-to-back drives and then everything hits. Eventually it hit, and it hit in a big way. And, hey, look, the other team's trying to. Yeah. So while the score is low and the game is starting, Nevada was trying to. But bottom line, they're done. They're out. I do think that it speaks more to the relative weakness of Purdue's secondary than anything, because Oregon's first 2 opponents played Purdue the game before. And I know personnel changes a little bit and this and that, but bottom line, Rondale Moore is still there. Their offense has still got some power. But that defense is atrocious. It's one of the worst in the country.
Okay.
And, hey, Nevada put up a ton of points. Yeah, and Auburn kicked their teeth in the bowl game. No kidding. Purdue is not good. They're an average, they're a middling team. So it is what it is. So and I keep saying Nevada, and I hope I'm driving. I hope Todd Miles in the Oregon Athletic Department is listening, because it drives him nuts as a West Coast guy.
The fact that you can't say Nevada?
The fact that I say it as an East Coast enunciation of Nevada. Yes.
You're in Eugene now. You can start speaking. Speak the native tongue.
Yeah. Okay. we'll find plenty of words that are pronounced differently from one coast to the other. But anyway, but I do hope I'm driving Todd nuts if he's listening. Look, Nevada, again, they may prove to be a pretty decent team in the Mountain West, but they were no match for a team like Oregon. They weren't. They were never going to be. And I know fans who saw it without fail. One of the post-game things that I do every week is what the opposing coach and players said from their press conference, which I had to sit there and watch the press conference at like 2 a.m. On YouTube and transcribe the whole thing myself, because my day wasn't long enough. But without fail, fans always flock to it, whether Oregon wins or loses, and it doesn't matter if it's Oregon, by the way. It could be any team. I've seen this over and over and over, outlet across the country. Whatever the opposing coach and player said, fans just flock to and want to read. And a lot of Oregon fans I saw felt like, hey, Jay Norvell didn't give enough credit. Everything was about Nevada and all the things they didn't do, and they didn't credit Herbert enough. They didn't credit Oregon enough. They win 77-6, but Nevada's talking about all the mistakes they made rather than all the good things that Oregon did. I can understand that perspective. I can, because Jay Norvell did not say very much about Oregon's flat-out domination across the board. He really didn't, other than that they're very good and Herbert was excellent and credit to the Oregon defense and things, but it was pretty quick remarks. And he did harp on a lot of the mistakes that they made. Now, did those mistakes lead to winning or losing the football game? No. But he still has to keep it about his team.
Right.
Because the minute that he starts building, here's the problem. If he just kisses the ring, that appeases you. Right. Which is fine. But all politics is local politics. He has to worry about his room and his supporters. His supporters don't care whether he compliments Oregon or not.
That's right.
They understand that Oregon's great. They want to hear how you're going to fix some of the things that were glaringly bad going forward, because not every opponent's going to be that tough.
Yep.
So that's the issue there. So let's put it this way. As somebody who's just a totally neutral party, I didn't take quite as much exception to it, but I understand why fans do. We will get to Oregon State, and boy, did they supply plenty. Boy, oh boy, did they supply 20. 20, yeah, that too. But no, they supplied plenty to talk about. We will get to that coming up. You're listening to the James Crepea Show here on Fox Sports Eugene.
Fox Sports Eugene has the Valley's best high school football coverage with Friday Night Live. Join Brian Beban as he keeps you on top of all the games going on in real time. Why only listen to one high school football game when you can find about all of the games going on in our area? It's Friday Night Live, starting this Friday at 7 p.m. on Core 1050 and 95.7 Fox Sports Eugene. Now back to the James Crepea Show, presented by Dairy Mart.
And as I mentioned before, we will welcome on a friend of mine, Bill Speros, in a few minutes. He also goes by OBF, which in the Northeast is known as Obnoxious Boston Fan. You can follow him on Twitter at Bill Speros and also at Real OBF. And just for reference, and why I told you, Steve, you got to be mindful. Okay, got to be ready.
I'm ready on the button.
The tweet from Real OBF was, "Holy, I'm going to tune in." So just letting you know. Okay, just keeping you aware. Keeping you on your toes. Keep you on your toes. We should keep it between the buoys, but just in case. Because, again, I want to be able to rib him on the Yankees-Red Sox, which I believe is still scoreless right now. And Boston actually has a runner on second. So he might be able to give it to me a little bit. But we'll see. We'll get to him in a couple minutes. For Oregon State, because I don't want to delay it too long, and again, we'll talk with Nick Daschel also in the 5 o'clock hour about it. Take your pick about one of the things or all of the things to be annoyed about in this one, if you are a Beavers fan. You can say that the defense did what it had to in the second half, still allowed 30-plus points, but did what it had to in the second half in order to keep them competitive and have a chance to win, and that the offense is what fell off. Granted, Jamar Jefferson has over, I think it was 184, I believe, 184, 186 yards rushing.
Yeah. But
nevertheless, the offense did not do enough in the second half to keep the sticks moving and scoring points in particular. So is that the thing you're annoyed about? Are you annoyed about Caleb Hayes getting into it with Avery Roberts on the sideline? Are you annoyed with the postgame with Gus Lavaca and the incident there? And I'll expound on that later. By the way, I actually think that the Lavaca one is much ado about nothing. But the Hayes one clearly is a bigger deal. Both of them facing first-half suspensions for this week coming up against Cal Poly. Jonathan Smith announced today. But to me, if you're going to actually talk about this game, which mattered in a big way, as we discussed on Friday, there is no way around it. None. And after the game, there wasn't nearly enough talk about this late Saturday night and Sunday. How in the world does Jonathan Smith rationalize faking a punt with about 4:20 to go at his own 34-yard line, 4th and 10 in a tie game? How in the world does he rationalize that? He spoke about it today.
That play we'd had in actually for a couple of weeks, been executing really well. We actually got the look we wanted. The corner covering Dre is thinking that he's going to run down on punt. He's open, and D-Rod missed him. We wanted to err on the side of aggression. I felt confident where our defense was playing. We got 3 timeouts. We hold them to what we ended up holding them to, 3 points. We got the ball with 2 minutes and 3 timeouts to go do some things. There's risk-reward in this game. There's no question. And that's part of the reason I love it in regards we're going to want to be aggressive. Thought we caught him off guard. We did. We didn't execute the play.
I get what Smith's saying there. I'm sorry. He lost his team the football game. Period. I'm not saying that the offense doesn't deserve any blame for not being able to execute better in the second half. Okay? I'm not excusing the fact that, oh, well, it was still a higher scoring game. The defense could have done a little bit better earlier on. No. Your job is to win football games, and with that, putting your players in the best position to have success to execute mission number 1. Win the game. Period. There is nothing else during the game. How do you put your players, how do you operate the chessboard and put your pieces in place in order to win the game? You're in a tie game at your own 34-yard line with 4 and change to go. Now, he's talking about having 3 timeouts, and, well, in theory, and he says he's telling you that they had the look they wanted. By the way, they were in Hawaii was in basically a safe-like return. So he'll tell you that it was a look they wanted. I'm telling you, I'm sorry. Unless that guy was literally standing there so wide open that it was unavoidable to complete a pass, which you're still putting the ball in the hands of your punter. Your punter to do this. In a tie game. In a game you really, really need to win in order to show progress as a program. With all the backstory and the, whether you want to call it a rivalry or just general dislike between the programs right now. You needed that game. You're in a close ball game. It is tied. You're in your own territory. Now, look, with 3 timeouts, you can tell me if you punt, they can take all the time in the world off the clock if they're able to move down the field. And Hawaii certainly has the offense capable of it, though the defense is playing pretty well. So, hey, maybe. Maybe they move down the field well enough, and even with the timeouts, you're able to pull it off. Maybe. And maybe they're able to just wind all the clock down, kick a game-winning field goal, which, by the way, the kicker was missing like crazy all night. Makes the game winner. Good for him, but was missing a bunch. But hey, maybe that would have been true. But they still would have had to drive the field. Instead, you risk turning it over, which you do. You risk that they could have, if it weren't for a personal foul that they followed up on like one play later, Oregon State's defense, Hawaii might very well have been able to wind the clock significantly if it weren't for that. Them committing the personal foul and moving the chains actually helped. We'll get into that more. Our guest coming up, Bill Speros, has given us a call, so we will go to him coming up momentarily. You're listening to the James Crepea Show here on Fox Sports Eugene. And we now welcome on a friend of mine who presently is wrapping up his tenure at Golf Week, doing both reporting and writing as well as social strategy. Also writes for the Boston Herald, as many Red Sox fans and Pats fans know him as. Real OBF, Obnoxious Boston Fan. Does a lot of fine work there beyond having some just poignant columns and always amusing. But is now moving to gambling.com in about a week or so to join his former boss at Golf Week and good friend of both him and I, Jerry Ahern at gambling.com. We welcome Mr. Bill Speros to the program. Bill, welcome aboard, sir.
Jimmy, it's a thrill. I can't believe you got a passport together and you got out of the Confederacy. Now you're in the great Northwest. I think your next stop will be American Samoa or the Philippines.
It's a chance. Both Oregon and Oregon State recruit there, so there's always a possibility that I have to do a big feature story on a defensive lineman who's 350 pounds. There's a chance.
Was it the weed or the discount Nike stuff from Factory Direct that forced you out of the home nation of George Wallace and Bo Jackson, sent you screaming hurling to the great Northwest.
Based on his wardrobe, it's definitely not the Nike stuff.
Oh no!
Yeah.
First off, I wear plenty of
Jimmy,
Nike gear.
I've probably known Jimmy for 10 or 15 years. I think he wore a non-wrinkled shirt once by mistake. I think it was at awards night. We probably gave him an award. You know how you have special like participation trophies. I think he got an APSC participation trophy.
I clean up well. Yes.
Yeah, it's like when you have your court appearance. You know, you dress up well for the judge. You better put on a tie, Jimmy. The judge isn't going to like that.
And he found it for the publicity picture, so he worked out okay there.
Yeah, the publicity picture and then the one at the post office, you know, wanted. Well, you know, where they put you up 500 feet from the school zone, like you're not allowed within 500 feet of, you know, Paul Allen Elementary or something.
As I suggested and thought, this was going to turn into the Crepea Roast hosted by Bill Speros on the Man of the Hour here on my own show, which I'm fine with because Bill's great. Bill, I knew it was the occasion to bring you on once the Antonio Brown saga ended in Oakland as it was bound to do, and as we later learned, it was meant to do, and as he was striving to do. But then once he became available, the running joke would be that he would sign with the Pats, and lo and behold, it happened mere minutes later that he ends up with your New England Patriots, and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, who has put forth performance on.
We are all Patriots. Okay, Robert K. Kraft, 2002, 2019, Orchid Day Spa.
But when you learned that it was official and that it wasn't just rumor or innuendo, and that your Patriots were getting the biggest self-centered player in the NFL, though possibly the best receiver in the NFL, what were you thinking, Bill?
You know, Jimmy, today is the I think 29th anniversary of the release of Goodfellas, which is also known as the soundtrack of my life. So when the Patriots acquired Antonio Brown, I went into the shower and turned on Wins 1010 News and pounded on the side of the shower like Henry Hill did after he learned of the Lufthansa heist. It was one of the top 6 moments of joy in my life, all of which featured Tom Brady.
Why? Obviously, he's a tremendous talent, and we know that the Patriots culture is absolutely never going to be shaken. But this one is a little bit different in that...
No, you just answered your own question, Jimmy.
I know it can't be rattled.
Aaron Hernandez allegedly killed people, and he did not shake the Patriots culture. I think he shook Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft because, and I wrote about this at the time, and I actually had like legitimate academic and medical people back me up after I wrote something. Aaron Hernandez like fooled these guys into thinking that they could change him. You know, he was always a murderous psychopath. The background on him was obviously well known to Urban Meyer and to Belichick and everybody. But guys like Kraft and Belichick and even Urban Meyer, sure, you know, they look at people like this and they say, well, I can fix him, I can change him, or our system will change him, or at least we're going to make him work in our system. And the Patriots have a long record with guys like this, not always good. I mean, there was Corey Dillon on the upside. There was Randy Moss for a while on the upside. Ocho was a mixed bag. Albert Hainsworth was a disaster. Dante Stallworth was a disaster. So, yeah, there's no guarantee that this is going to work. But, you know, the only downside is the $9 million guaranteed. And I would be willing to say, in half jest but not full, that for Robert Kraft it was probably worth $9 million to suck all the oxygen out of the air prior to the first week of the NFL season. You want to know how much talk there was of Robert Kraft's off-season arrest leading into the first week of the NFL season, thanks to the Antonio Brown signing? I clocked about 23 seconds last night on NBC, and that was like Mike Tirico being forced to like read the statement after the aliens invade. You know, it was one of these. In the offseason, Robert Kraft was arrested in Florida for prostitution solicitation, like basically to get it out there on the record. But there was no talk. I didn't see it. I watched 12 hours of football yesterday. I heard nothing about Robert Kraft's arrest this offseason except for that little forced resuscitation that Mike Tirico gave last night. So you can partly say in jest, given the insanity that surrounds the Patriots, that Kraft put up $9 million just to buy his way out of the news last week and last night. And you saw the ovation he got walking out on that field with that big, giant, polished, shiny trophy of his. So, you know, right there is a win for the Patriots.
And this is why we bring Bill on, because he has poignant, and while he's both very amusing and funny, he also has very poignant points of view and analysis in looking into something like that, because he makes a perfectly valid point, yes, that in signing Antonio Brown, while there's obviously the risk-reward, that, yes, it also changes the – I wouldn't say totally changes the narrative, but creates a welcome distraction for an owner who needed
it didn't change history because I was actually online today looking at the court docket to figure out where that case was because I was, you know, working on my column for this week. But I'm going to write about something else. I'm going to catch up with the Kraft case next week. But basically the case is in a holding pattern until next week. But, you know, there's been no news. There was no talk about Kraft leading up into even before Antonio Brown was signed, but certainly not after. There was no national buzz or discussion about how was Robert Kraft still involved with the NFL because he got caught in a massage parlor. There was none of that was on the NFL Today. None of that was on ESPN. I didn't see it anywhere. I didn't see it on social media. I mean, if it was there, I flat out missed it because I was looking for it. I mean, so, you know, there's two different tracks here. Now, the whole issue of, you know, will Antonio Brown fit in? Who knows? If he doesn't fit in, he's gone. And again, it's Robert Kraft's money. So I don't care. There's really no risk for the Patriots here. I don't get where people think that Antonio Brown's going to be the one guy who brings down the empire.
No,
the only
person
that's
not going to happen.
Who's going to bring down the empire is going to be Tom Brady when he decides to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, even Giselle has been, you know, rendered powerless because Brady has straightened out that part of his life in terms of she's letting him sort of play until he wants to quit because he gives her the off season. That was the greatest threat, and that's been neutralized. So really the greatest threat to the Patriots is whatever Tom Brady feels like not playing anymore or for some crazy reason he wants to go out and sign for $50 million with the Las Vegas Raiders or the, you know, San Francisco 49ers.
Bill, when watching last night's game, because Brown wasn't with them just yet, and you get the benefit of a absolute whooping on the Steelers, who are always a pretty hated rival of sorts in the AFC for the Pats. How fun was that for you to sit back and watch on a day where the Red Sox lost to the Yankees, that you get to end it with a Pats lopsided whooping on the Steelers?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think someone needs to tell Mike Tomlin that Philip Dorsett, number 13, is active on the Week 1 roster because obviously Mike Tomlin, that defensive genius that he is when he's not tripping players running down the sidelines, had no idea how to cover this guy or the fact that he was on the field. I think the Patriots realized that, which is why he cut, 2 touchdown passes. And that sort of goes back to the whole Antonio Brown question. When you have Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon and Julian Edelman and maybe Philip Dorsett, unless you're Mike Tomlin and you don't think of that, and Sony Michel and or James White in the backfield, who are you going to stop? Who are you going to focus on? You going to double team anybody? You're going to leave somebody open. Who knows? Maybe Rex Burkhead will gain 150 yards on the ground. So stopping that offense is going to be hard. I mean, I don't know if it was the Patriots were that good or the Steelers were that bad. I have no idea. I think we don't know that until next week. Well, for all the Patriots haters out there, next week is the mother of all trap games because they're going to Miami. It's in Miami where they never win, and it's going to be 150 degrees, and the Dolphins suck. So that's probably the one game they can lose all year is that game next week in Miami.
Bill, they could run out the second team. They could run out the practice squad. That Dolphin
I
team
would
is
say
so
that.
bad.
It's just the game. I've seen them lose too many times in Miami, Jimmy. I mean, it's just maybe it's a personal thing with me. My son and I saw them get shut out by Miami there in 2006. So I just think it's something about that place. I don't know what it is, where they did, if they were going to Houston and Houston was that bad, or they were going to Indianapolis and it'd be a routine, no problem slaughter. But there's just a little part of me that isn't 100% comfortable with them, as bad as Miami is. Now, I will amend the statement if Brian Flores decides to quit at halftime and return as defensive coordinator to the Patriots, because that job is still open and has not been filled. So maybe Belichick knows what he's doing right there and, will offer Flores his old job back either before the game or at halftime.
Chatting with Bill Speros of Presently Golf Week, but we'll be transitioning over to gambling.com.
Yeah, hopefully they'll fire me after this call. Although I'm scheduled to work through Sunday. I told them I'd stick around till Sunday.
Joining
we do have a lot of work this week. We have a tournament.
And also writes for the Boston Herald under Real OBF, Obnoxious Boston Fan. Shifting gears to your other beloved team, the Red Sox. They fired Dave Dombrowski less than a year after the World Series.
Even just a few moments ago, the timeline last night was this. The Red Sox started. The Patriots celebrated a sixth title. Robert Kraft held up his big, shiny trophy. Gronk spiked the ball. The Patriots destroyed the Steelers. Tom Brady and Stephen Gilmore did a post-game interview. They cut away, we're done. Patriots look good, on to Miami. And then the Red Sox were still playing when the Patriots game ended. So I turned it on to the mausoleum, that was Fenway Park, and listened to A-Rod and Jessica, what's-her-name, drone on incessantly, thinking, okay, this is my punishment for 2018. A-Rod actually had a good line. He gave the Red Sox credit for outscoring the Steelers. And then after that game, after midnight is when news broke of Dombrowski being fired. So, I mean, it was like the most Red Soxian news dump I've ever seen in my life. At past midnight, on the same night that the Patriots raise a championship banner, they fire the president/GM who won a World Series 11 months ago. So that's probably not John Henry's finest moment.
There's when I saw the initial report of it late last night, which, yes, it was after midnight, East Coast, after 9 o'clock here on the West Coast. The initial reports were, well, in certain baseball circles, it's not that surprising, but obviously less than a year off a championship that he was the architect of, certainly surprising no matter who you are, even if certain people sort of saw this coming. Now, as an old sports editor, my first reaction to that is if you saw it coming, you didn't report it, you didn't see it coming. Well, of course.
So
yeah.
I don't need to hear anything from the state-run media baseball crowd telling me how they saw this coming when no one had a freaking clue this was coming because it was dropped on them, as we're all basking in the glow and cleaning ourselves up after the Patriots game. So nobody knew this was coming because nobody knew it was coming. Maybe, yeah, okay, they might have gotten rid of him at the end of the season had they extended, because he only had a one-year deal. I get all that. But to say that we knew this was coming at 12:07 a.m. on a Monday?
With a month to go in the season.
With a month to go in the season where they're still mathematically in it, but they're not. And in the, where the nuclear glow of Tom Brady is still, like the northern lights of Oregon, just like the hue of the sun, and that gives us all life and sustenance. That is Tom Brady. As that is dimming finally after a night of bacchanalia and unspeakable acts on the radio, where that hasn't even settled yet, and then they fired this guy. Nobody knew this was coming. So I don't want to hear any of that crap. But
so who do you want to lead them next?
The situation was tenuous, sure. Frankly, I think the manager hasn't. I think the manager bears a lot of responsibility here too. This team was not ready to play. The starting pitching was not physically ready coming out of spring training. I mean, that's for sure. It took Cora 70 games to put a lineup together. By then, they were stuck at 500, and they were pretty much out of everything. I guess you can't fire the GM and the manager at the same time. That wouldn't make any sense, and they're probably more invested in Cora because he didn't assemble this payroll. But, there's a lot of blame to go around there. But, Dombrowski, somebody has to take the hit. I get that. It is what it is.
We'll get you out of here on this,
the fact
Bill.
that he won a World Series last year doesn't mean anything this year.
Well,
and that's the way it is.
That segues to my point, Bill. We'll get you out of here on this. What is it going to be like? Because, yes, you had another World Series yet again last year, but as you're watching the Yankees go into the playoffs and potentially take 3 or 4, depending on the outcome tonight, over the Sox, and really open up that division and clearly retake the throne at the moment, what is that going to be like to watch the Yankees play in the playoffs and the Sox not make it this season?
Well, first of all, Jimmy, I was 22 rows behind the plate in the 1978 playoff game, watching Yaz pop up to end it. So my suffering goes way back. I'm not going to watch the Yankees in the playoffs, frankly. I don't watch the playoffs unless the Red Sox are in it. I've earned that card. So none of this is new to me. It's not going to hurt at all. If I get really depressed, I'll just throw in one of the DVDs, one of the 11 post-21st century DVDs and remind myself that, we're in a new century. It's a new millennium. We're really only counting championships post-segregation maybe or post this century. And I think we're doing okay.
I was going to say, yeah, you've done well for yourself. Your town has definitely taken over pretty well.
They got another duck boat parade coming on February 4th, so they'll be fine as long as the weather holds out.
Appreciate you joining us, Bill. Look forward to having you on whenever there's something out of the Northeast that you can rail on.
Anytime, Jimmy. This is great. I've never been to Oregon, but now I've kind of been there.
Now you'll have the occasion and the excuse. Appreciate you, my friend.
Anytime, pal.
You're listening to the James Crepea Show here on Fox Sports Eugene. We thank Bill for joining us and, again, providing always some amusement and whatnot. Do not start calling me Jimmy, by the way. Do not start calling me that.
But...
No. Bill's able to do it. He busts my chops, but no. That is not going to become a thing. That is not going to become a thing. I don't know. It's something more amusing when somebody who stopped dropping their R's is doing it. But yeah, no. Don't think that that's going to become acceptable to the masses anytime soon. Recapping our bets, our picks, I should say, in the betting realm, though we did not put a penny on the line. Just for
fortunately.
amusement. So here's our accountability, which we like to call losers at the window. We both went 5-5 picking against the spread, and we both went 4-6 on over-unders. So for the season, I am 10-9. Steve is 9-10 on the spreads. I am 12-7 on over-unders. Steve is 8-11. So that is how we went on picks. Not great. Not great in week 2 for us. But there's always next week.
Yep.
There's always next week. Houston leads New Orleans 7-0. First half, Raiders later tonight. You're listening to the James Crepea Show on Fox Sports Eugene.
This is the James Crepea Show.
We've got a blind date with destiny.
And it looks like she's ordered the lobster.
Oregonian columnist James Crepea.
I had some crackpot dynamite reporter at the first press conference ask me how in the heck we're going to possibly throw the ball when they keep a lid on their covers and who's the best pass rusher you've ever played against.
We're not the favorites. We're the other guys.
KORE 1050 and 95.7. Fox Sports Eugene. Here is the James Crepea Show, presented by Dairy Mart.
We open the 5 o'clock hour asking the question, who got sauced?
Oh my God, I'm a victim.
Who had the worst week? It's time for the James Crepea Show to find out.
It's so unfair.
Who got sauced?
Huh?
Call 541-343-KORE and tell us who had the worst week for your chance to win a $25 gift card from Chicken Bones. Chicken with an attitude.
So Give us a call on the Davis Roofing Hotline at 541-343-KORE. That's 541-343-5673. And give us your pick for who had the worst weekend. It could be college. It could be the NFL. There were plenty of options. There was the Steelers' offensive center who didn't snap the ball, and the entire offensive line technically false started because he didn't snap the ball. There was the Cardinals' offensive lineman who, in an effort to try to avoid slamming into Kyler Murray, actually tried to jump over and clear the number one pick in the NFL draft to avoid hitting him, and instead sacked his own quarterback in the process. And very nearly could have been a disastrous situation depending on how he landed, majestically avoiding making contact, major contact with Kyler Murray in the process.
The one I thought you were going to do,
I was just waiting.
I was just
for
waiting.
the NFL realm. I was just mentioning, giving people a few possibilities in the NFL realm. You can mention just about anybody on the New York Jets, given that they choked one away to the atrocious Buffalo Bills. And that's why, by the way, the Patriots, who we were just talking about with Bill Speros in the 4 o'clock hour, are absolutely going to continue their reign in that division, because Miami might be the worst, probably undoubtedly is the worst team in the league right now. And the other two teams are the Bills, who are terrible, yet they managed to beat the Jets, who were supposed to be on the upswing and looked like they might have been headed in that direction. Looked like they might have had a few things together and then decided to do what they always do and fail. And by the way, I'm not speaking from a Jets fan or Giants fan. I do not have a team in the NFL. I just look and I appreciate greatness and pull for certain players. They may or may not be on my fantasy team. I only have one, and it's not that much money, so I really don't care that much. It really is just pulling for players. I don't have a team in the league. I don't.
For me, I think it's got to be between Cleveland, the Browns, getting sauced on opening day by Marcus Mariota, and the Titans, or, as much as I really, really, really hate to say this, I think Chip Kelly got sauced.
I was going to say, in the college realm, I had a few picks, and he was at or near the top.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I was waiting for you to say it.
I was just waiting to clear the NFL part first, but are there options in the college realm?
And if you've got one, give us a call on the Davis Roofing Hotline, 541-343-KORE. It's 541-343-5673. Tell us who got sauced, and you could walk away with a $25 Chicken Bones gift card.
And yes, Chip Kelly being certainly a prime candidate for starting 0-2 on this season, losing to San Diego State, a just complete and utter embarrassment for UCLA. A disgrace is what it was.
Did not see it coming.
Disgrace. UCLA was 8.5-point favorites. They lost by 9. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
He is bombing. As I predicted, as I told anybody who would listen all offseason, he is not good. The game has passed him by, and he will be the biggest bomb of a hire in that 2 to 3 year window, at least.
I still disagree.
And right now, the way it's shaping up, it'll be even bigger.
I still disagree. I still think he needs to build up his roster.
Sure. In the meanwhile, Mr. Scheme, Mr. Blur Offense, Mr. Offensive Guru, his team right now ranks 127th in offensive yards. 127. And 128 in yards per play. That was your strength. Now I know, they didn't have Josh Kelly and Theo Howard in week 1. Yeah, I know. They played a legitimate defense in Cincinnati. I told you all about that. But they played San Diego State last week, who I believe, if memory serves me correctly, won 6-0 over Weber State the week before. Don't tell me that San Diego State is this powerhouse group of 5 team. Even though San Diego State has several wins over Pac-12 teams the last several years.
Well, it seems like a lot of Mountain West schools have wins over Pac-12 teams recently.
Oh, and they're definitely getting UCLA when they're right for the picking, but I'm sorry. If those guys are on the field, and they were, you have no excuse to lose. None. Lose at home to San Diego State. An embarrassment.
How about
they are going to have a worse season than they did a year ago. There's no doubt in my mind. And frankly, one of the few games on the Oregon State schedule that you should be looking at and hoping for and believing that you've got a real shot. Right there.
I also think Arizona.
I mentioned them before as well.
Did you see
I know
that
their
game?
defense isn't any good.
Did you see any of that game against Northern Arizona?
Yeah.
A
little bit. Not much. A little bit.
I was not expecting that team to score that many points on Arizona. I mean, it looked like Arizona was putting them away before, and then next thing you know, they've got 41 points on the board.
Again, they're doing the same thing that they've done for a while. That Kevin Sumlin has done for a while, which is put up a ton of offense, but that the defense just isn't there. He hasn't found the right DC, and he hadn't found the right DC at Arizona, which I understand. I'll actually give him a pass for that right now. But if they keep it up, if they go under 6-6 this season, which is entirely possible after the loss to Hawaii in particular, but if Arizona ends up with another losing year, he probably will, and he undoubtedly should change coordinators. He'll probably be able to get the right defensive coordinator out of some place like the SEC. And then they need to absolutely run roughshod over people in the transfer portal and bring in talent immediately.
Well, I think
on the defensive side of the ball.
Based on what I saw on both how Oregon State played Hawaii and how Arizona has played these last 2 weeks, I think Oregon State has a legit shot to beat both UCLA and Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing to the contrary. The problem is that Arizona's so potent in offense that I'm not sure that it's going to matter that their defense stinks. That's the only difference. Whereas UCLA right now, they have nothing going for them. Nothing. If you manage to get in, there was a line online on an opening spread. The online books always post first because they want the publicity. That's all that is. It's nothing more than that. And if you manage to get in on an opening line of 17, Oklahoma 17 at UCLA. If you manage to get that Sunday morning.
That's money.
Let's put it this way. I have not placed a penny, not a penny, on collegiate sports in close to a decade. Not a penny. I very nearly had to go back into my contacts and find somebody who I haven't talked to in nearly a decade and say, all of it. Everything. Are you kidding? Now, again, whether or not it's stuck with 17 at other spots doesn't matter. It's up to 22 now. Even at 22,
I'd be tempted.
I would take it at 32.
I would be tempted.
They are horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. And Oklahoma is actually playing halfway decent defense. Halfway. They're not just there yet, but they can actually play defense. They have a real defensive coordinator. And they still have Jalen Hurts. And they still have Lincoln Riley as the coach. That's all I need to know. Are you kidding? I'm not sure you could set the spread high enough for me to not pick Oklahoma to cover in that game.
This week's hold all tickets is going to be pretty interesting.
I'm telling you right now, they have a very, very good chance. They being UCLA. They're absolutely losing this week. That's a given. I mean, there is literally, it might be the biggest upset of the college football season if they were to beat Oklahoma this week. It literally might be. There's no way on this given earth that they are going to win that game. None. Zero. I don't care if something happened to somebody at Oklahoma. I don't care if Jalen Hurts is suspended. He is not. That's not happening. I mean, there's no way they can beat that team. So they're going to start off 0-3. They then have to go to Pullman, which was announced as a night game. Good luck with that. You know that's going to be Berserko World up there, and that's the first real game for Washington State of the season. But, again, UCLA will be 0-3 and atrocious. So let's call it 0-4. That trip to Arizona then becomes your first chance to get a win if you're UCLA. And again, Arizona's piling up points. If they start off 0-5 and then have to host Oregon State, who is going to be desperate and dying for a win. You kidding? Yeah, that'll be competitive one way or the other. I'm not going to tell you who wins right now. I have no idea. Then they've got at Stanford, Arizona State, Colorado, who suddenly looks like they might be quasi-legit. I say quasi only because I'm not big on Nebraska. I was so happy to get that pick wrong.
I got it right.
I was thrilled to get that wrong. Trust me. Once it got to overtime, I said, well, I'm losing pretty much no matter what happens here other than something totally bizarre.
I wish I'd held fast on that Sacramento State pick, too. I was leaning it, and I changed my mind.
Arizona State's looking pretty weak. But anyway, point is there is nobody left on UCLA's schedule. Nobody. Zero. Nobody that you can, even if you're the most die-hard, if you are one of the two die-hard Bruin football fans out there.
Do they play Arizona this year? They have to. They're in
Obviously.
the South.
There is no game left on the schedule, though, that you can say, oh, that's a win. I'm not telling you that they can't win a game or multiple games. I'm telling you there's not a game on the schedule for UCLA that you say, oh, yeah, they're obviously, that's book it, done.
Now
None. Not a one. Not Arizona, not Arizona State, not Oregon State. Not a one. That team is awful.
Okay, we got
Awful.
your Chip Kelly hate out of the way now. Tell me, what about Cal? Did you stay up to watch the game? I did.
Stay up. I was working till 4 a.m.
Okay, never mind. You were awake.
Yeah.
So I finally got the first taste of what East Coast people see when it's time to watch a Pac-12 game. You know, having a game.
Which, by the way, everybody was complaining about on social media. That's total nonsense. Nonsense. Don't act like that an East Coast game never got rain delayed.
No. I'm just saying being up till 1 in the morning.
I'm just putting it out there because the people who are complaining about it and acting like, oh, here's a Pac-12 playing at 2 a.m. Yeah, they did it by choice. Stop.
No.
It was a lightning delay, and it would require moving heaven and earth to reschedule the game. So, of course, they're going to try and do it. It happened to go late. It happens one time due to the weather. They live with it.
Yeah, no. I'm more talking about the fact that an East Coast person doesn't stay up to watch Pac-12 games.
Right.
Because on the East Coast, they're going till 1 in the morning.
They very nearly got to wake up and have coffee in the morning and watch the end of it.
Exactly. So I got a little taste of to understand what they go through when it comes to a Pac-12 game that comes on at 7 o'clock our time. But what about Cal's performance? What about Cal and how they did against Washington?
Hey, I got that game totally right. I got Cal. I went back and forth, and I picked Cal to cover the spread. I would have never picked them straight up to win, but I picked them to cover the spread. And then when they did straight up win on a field goal late, which, all right, you can't take anything as a guarantee with a field goal kicker, but that was an extra point. That was. And Weaver plays out of his mind. Obviously, the secondary does well, and I'm not going to make excuses about whether or anything else. They still had to win the game. And bottom line, they did. They went into what is still a hostile environment. I don't care if there were half the people there. That is still a difficult environment, one of the more difficult ones that Cal is going to play at all season. Now it'll probably be Autzen because provided that the weather isn't as bad and that there is no weather delays, then Autzen will probably be their toughest one now. But they still have to go up to a team that I understand that they beat them a year ago, but right now, that is one heck of a win. It's a heck of a win.
Is it a bad defense by Washington, or is it? I mean, because honestly, I did not see Cal having any offense. I thought they were just going to be a defensive team, and
well,
that
wasn't a shootout, Steve.
No, it wasn't a shootout. But
they moved 20-19 with a game-winning field goal in the closing seconds.
But they moved the ball way better than I expected them to against that Washington defense. I mean, I'm sorry, their quarterback was not somebody I would be looking at as a first, second, or third team Pac-12 selection.
He's not.
So,
Chase Garbers isn't that level of player.
No.
He's not.
And
I don't think you'd find anybody in Cal telling you that he is.
Yeah.
They have what they have.
I just didn't think it was even close to being good enough to beat Washington.
But
at home.
The defense is what continues to be. Look, the defense is going to keep them competitive in a lot of games.
Yeah.
It's a matter of can the offense put it together well enough to where they can at least eke out some and show signs of improvement, because the fact is their schedule's tougher than it was a year ago. Just is.
Yeah.
Just is. The South Division crossovers this year are tougher than they were a year ago. But credit to them. 192 on the ground. Now, that's not to say Washington didn't do anything. No, Washington did plenty. They had 186 on the ground. It wasn't like Salvin Ahmed didn't do anything. 21 for 119 with a touchdown is a plenty fine day. Did okay. But Cal kept the lid on the coverage. The longest pass Washington had all day was 25 yards. Aaron Fuller, 3 for 40. Hunter Bryant, 4 for 40. That's big.
Yeah.
It's huge. Huge. If you would have taken a prop bet heading into that game and asked people who has the longer pass play in the game, Washington or Cal, Washington would have been the favorite by about a 3-1 margin. At least.
Yeah.
Even with the Cal secondary.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of they're infinitely more talented at skill positions on offense. And that's, again, the Cal secondary is that good, and Evan Weaver in the middle is really damn good. Damn good. It's the reason why he earned Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week, which, by the way, I'm a voter in that.
Oh, cool.
I was a voter in the preseason, and I'm a voter on the weekly Players of the Week within the conference. Media has a vote starting this season. So I voted for that. So and I believe I'm 99.9% positive. Everybody who won this week or was recognized by the Pac-12 this week, I believe I actually picked those exact players. So the programs put forward their nominees. So there's anywhere from 6 to 12, depending on the category, nominees in each category. So offensive lineman, defensive lineman, freshman, offensive and defensive player, and et cetera, special teams player. And, you get to vote on that Sunday night, Monday morning. And, everybody who was recognized, I'm pretty sure I picked every single one of them because it was just that level of performance. Weaver did. 18 tackles, 2 for loss. Yeah. It's all over the field. All over the field. And he wasn't the only one. Yeah, and credit to the rest of them because Ashton Davis, 6 tackles in that secondary. One of the better secondary players in the conference. They played great. So, no, I don't think it was merely that, Washington's defense didn't play well. They still only allowed 20 points, and the last 3 came in the closing seconds. So let's not act like Cal just racked it up like crazy. This was a tight defensive game, which is exactly what I was expecting it to be going in. And while I would have picked straight up Washington to win, I still picked Cal to cover because I never thought 2 touchdowns. I really did not think Washington was going to be able to cover that. I really didn't. As much as I actually like Eason, and I do, I think he's solid. I don't think he's great. I think he's solid. But neither quarterback had a particularly great game. They didn't. Part of it being the weather and whatnot. But now that doesn't mean Washington's done and out. But the other side, on one hand, it's a great win for Cal and Justin Wilcox. On the other hand, nationally speaking, you have now seen early in the season the top 3 ranked teams, or 3 of the top 4 ranked teams from the Pac-12 lose in the first 2 weeks of the season. Oregon, obviously, to the only top 25 matchup in week 1. Washington at home to Cal. And Stanford in a conference game to a ranked opponent, and both of them with backup quarterbacks, albeit, but nevertheless. And by the way, Utah, who earned a nice win in week 1, really didn't look all that great in week 2.
Nope.
Because I watched that game before heading off to Autzen, and man, they did all they could to keep Northern Illinois around in that one for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, Utah has still got to be the runaway favorite in the South, just because, hey, it's still only 1 week with USC and the quarterback and the freshman. But hey, SC might just be competitive enough. Might actually be able to put together a little bit of a season here. Might. Of course, it can all fall apart tomorrow. Of course, something can happen. They already lost one quarterback, and that, people thought that was going to be the end of things. And lo and behold, that might have been, I won't say a blessing in disguise exactly, because somebody still got hurt in the process. And you don't want to see that happen at JT Daniels. But they might very well have a very legit quarterback here. And that is exactly what Clay Helton needs in a year that he desperately needs wins, and especially today when his athletic director decides to resign. So for those of you who missed that news earlier today, Lynn Swann is out at USC. That definitely creates much more turnover, much more turmoil. Not to say this was totally unexpected in the sense that whether he was going to resign or he was going to get fired, if things didn't go well in football, you knew that Lynn Swann was exactly on the he went on the surest of ground.
Right.
Okay. So this is not exactly like, oh, wow. No. I mean, let's be real.
But this puts
a whole lot more on Helton. Frankly, I think even if Helton has success, even if SC wins the South, heck, even if they win the league, which right now you can't tell me that they can't. Even if they do, if I'm Clay Helton, unless the AD is like my best buddy, and you know that for sure by that first weekend in December, if he does good enough to survive, I got to think long and hard depending on the right opportunities to come along. Because it may be time to jump the shark just to jump the shark for self-preservation. And maybe he has too much pride, and maybe he thinks too well about recruiting, and maybe if they do win the division, that he'll tell himself that it can all be fixed and everything's on the right track. Who knows? I'm just telling you, you don't know who the AD is going to be, and neither do I right now. And we will have Antonio Morales of The Athletic on tomorrow to discuss that situation at USC and how things might go in that realm in particular, because that is a big move. But yes, to the premise of who got sauced, my pick, it would either be one of three. It's either Chip Kelly, who I'm not going to keep wasting time. It's awful down there right now. Awful. Jonathan Smith, who made a inexcusably bad decision that we will expound upon momentarily, or Jeremy Pruitt, who, holy smokes, what Tennessee has going on right now. When last year there were moments of positivity. There was an upset win at Auburn that was really a shot in the arm and gave that program and team something and fan base something to hang their hat on and say, all right, look, it's a big build, but we just notched that. To now start the year 0-2 with losses to teams who they have no business losing to. And he has to come out on his Monday game week press conference and talk about how he compared it to the Titanic and rats jumping off the ship. When the boat's taking on water, that they all scurry to the top and then they jump ship. And compared that to the guys who left the program a week or so ago and everything else. And we're going to see who wants to be a Vol and this and that. And if you saw the picture of Philip Fulmer in the post-game press conference when he's standing there with his hands at his waist, looking none too pleased, there is going to be some real questions to come in that part of the world. We'll get into Oregon State a little bit more coming up. You're listening to the James Crepea Show here on Fox Sports Eugene. As promised, we'll get into it with Oregon State now. Some personnel updates from this morning's press conference with Jonathan Smith, linebacker Addison Gums, one of the transfers, starting linebacker. Again, he was the guy who earned it over Hamaclar, who that was the big surprise and the one that I didn't quite understand by way of having Rashed Jr. not in the starting lineup. Well, that's not going to be the case for very much longer, because Addison Gums out for the season, torn ACL. Certainly not what you want to see to a defense that is already lacking talent and depth. Suffers a major blow to Addison Gums. Gums done for the year. Outside linebacker Matthew Tago, he suffered a knee injury, and center Nathan Eldridge suffered an ankle injury. Extent we'll get into more with Nick Daschel coming up in a few minutes. Again, as we mentioned in the last hour, offensive lineman Gus Lavaca and cornerback Caleb Hayes both suspended for the first half. I believe Smith spoke about that this morning.
Obviously, we had a couple of incidents that we're not really excited about, starting with Gus Lavaca after the game. I mean, this is a 3-hour battle that I thought the guy actually played at a high level. He played with a lot of energy and emotion, tried to make it physical. Gets to the end of the game on the sideline, and the finality of the game comes. And he's right on their sideline. They get excited, which they should. I mean, it was such a game of back and forth and emotion into it. And Gus made a bad choice in his response. There's no question. Below the standard that we want around here. Met with Gus this morning, talked it out. You talk about a guy that, he's embarrassed because he does represent this place. You're talking about a guy that was voted captain, and which was well-deserved. He's done so many things around here, about to graduate, well-respected. And, he felt embarrassed in the response he made. And to his credit, we didn't ask him to do this. He's reached out to their player over social media to apologize about his response. And so when I told him he will not play in the first half of this next game, it did not go over well for him. That's tough to deal with, but it's something that there's a standard here, and he fell short of that.
Now, here is the difference to me, and why I say this one's a little bit much ado about nothing. For those who saw the incident involving Lavaca, it was as the game ended, the play ended on the Hawaii sideline with the Oregon State player who was tackled right on or out of bounds. And Lavaca was over there, and his back was turned. He was slowly making his way off. And obviously, Hawaii was celebrating because they just won on the last play. It was a big deal. And one of the Hawaii players shoved Lavaca from behind. Didn't see it coming. So Lavaca retaliates. Now, you can tell me all you want about, well, you shouldn't do that in that moment. You should still have a cooler head, and you still shouldn't retaliate. Yeah, but the game is over now. There's no penalties. So it's, personally, I think it's much ado about nothing. Personally, I think that if it weren't for the Hayes suspension, which had to happen because his involved a teammate, that Lavaca would not be suspended. But because of that, I think Smith had no choice but to suspend Lavaca. We'll get into that in a few moments with Nick Daschel, but here is what Jonathan Smith had to say about the Caleb Hayes incident.
Same regard to Caleb Hayes. That thing is the same thing, well short of the standard. I get it. We asked these guys to play with some real emotion. We need them to. But you got to be able to control that, and that was not what we're looking to have in a game. It's not going to help us win. And the way he responded to his own teammate, and they get it. He's a competitive kid now. He's been working really hard. But that's well short of the standard. He'll do the same thing of not playing in the first half of this next game.
So as I say, if it were up to me, if I'm the one making the call, I would have actually not had them be the same level of suspension. And I again reiterate in my own just personal view, 10,000 foot here. If Hayes isn't getting into it with his own teammate, I don't think Lavaca is suspended at all. That's me. That's my take. But I don't cover the program. Nick Daschel does. We'll chat with him in a few minutes. You're listening to the James Crepea Show here on Fox Sports Eugene. We now welcome in my colleague at the Oregonian and OregonLive, Nick Daschel. You can follow him on Twitter at Nick Daschel. Covers the Oregon State Beavers, was in Hawaii for Saturday night's game, which obviously went to the Warriors on a very late field goal, and it literally came down to the last play, and that Oregon State could have had a miracle there at the end. Welcome back to the program, Nick.
Good to be back.
Let's start with the various personnel hits. We were talking about it already at linebacker. Gums out for the season, torn ACL. Tago with a knee injury. What's the extent of that, and what is next at the linebacker position? Is it obviously Hamilcar getting right back in the starting lineup?
Well, yeah, Ham will definitely be starting. And frankly, he was a starter anyway in terms of snaps. But yeah, there was a position that was it was definitely their deepest position on defense going into the season. Might have been their deepest position on anywhere on the team. Not anymore with Anjay being down, and he was going to start, and Gums out for the year, and Tago, who had been starting. Don't know how long, what the severity of that knee injury is. It sounds like, Johnson said a couple weeks. I've learned that doesn't really mean a lot. It could be 2 weeks. It could be 5. I just don't know. It's a week-to-week thing. But, he wasn't walking around real good afterwards, so we'll see. So they're down to John McCartan on one side and Ham on the other, and then they're backed up by, some guys. Isaac Garcia played some, but, they're pretty thin now at that position. It's, they didn't have much of a pass rush last year. It was getting better with these guys, they had, but now we're might be a little bit back to the drawing board.
And at center, Nathan Eldridge, ankle injury. What's the update there as far as severity?
Well, it's not a high ankle sprain, so that's good news. It's an ankle sprain that's going to keep him out, at least this game, because they have a bye next week. So we'll see about, it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks probably, so, but I can never say this guy's name right. Keonenbaum, he's played quite a bit, and he played some last year, so they don't really fall off a lot at center. But, the depth, again, they can't afford to lose another guy there, so, that's a little bit of an issue. But at least the offensive line has performed pretty well, and that's not as big an injury as the ones on defense, because the defense, they are piling up in a hurry.
Nick, we played Jonathan Smith's remarks at this morning's press conference regarding the suspensions to Lavaca and Hayes. You heard what I had to say on hold. I think Lavaca doesn't get suspended if it's not for the Hayes incident. but that Jonathan Smith had no choice but to suspend Lavaca at that point because he couldn't have unequal. Do you think that's true, or do you think he would have suspended Lavaca regardless? Because I thought that Lavaca was just defending himself.
Oh, it's unknowable. The video looks bad in Lavaca's favor. I don't know if the guy from Hawaii said something or not, but it doesn't matter. That's when we walk away, and then he took a shove with his elbow, and the guy took offense and shoved him, and then it was on. And Jonathan blamed Lavaca for it, and I can't disagree with it. I don't know. I think he would have been suspended regardless. The Hayes thing, I don't know. He's had some incidents previously, and at least some of the practices I've seen where he's got into it, and this is getting to be a trend with him, and he's going to have to calm down a little bit, or college is going to be a long life for him.
To the play that I felt really was inexcusably bad, and maybe I'm off base, but I thought it was just an inexcusably bad decision. I know that he spoke about the fake punt and the thought process and having 3 timeouts, and all right, if you're able to hold them to a field goal, you've got 2 minutes and change potentially and 3 timeouts to do something on offense. Obviously didn't work out in their favor. Can you understand the thought process, Nick, or do you think that punt was just the fake punt being there with 4 and change to go was a worthwhile gamble?
Well, no, I don't. I think most people don't. But Jonathan, he proved last year he likes to gamble, and he likes to gamble in football, and so it's not that surprising. What was a little surprising though is I didn't think Bodden was all that open. I watched it. I watched it briefly on a big screen, and it looked like he was that open. I don't know what exactly. It would have been a tough catch, and the throw wasn't very good. But I don't know. They thought they were going to catch Hawaii off guard, and maybe they did. But I sure didn't look like he was that open. But at that point, you're kind of committed to throwing it. I don't think he could have dropped down and punted one. But the way Rodriguez punts, maybe he could have. But yeah, it's hard to defend, but I don't know. He did it last year, and so it's not a huge surprise. But yeah, it's not a play that I would probably endorse.
Appreciate you coming on, Nick. We've got a tight one today, and hopefully we'll get you back on either later in the week or shortly after the Cal Poly one because, this program definitely needs some positivity, needs a win, and this one was one that they really needed and didn't head their way.
Hey, no turnovers yet.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Appreciate you jumping on. Thanks, Nick.
All right, see you. Bye.
You're listening to the James Crepea Show here on Fox Sports Eugene.
Fox Sports Eugene is your home for Oakland Raiders football. Catch the season kickoff tonight at 7 p.m. as the Oakland Raiders take on the Denver Broncos. Join Brent Musburger on the call for Raiders Broncos tonight at 7 on your exclusive home for Oakland Raiders football, Fox Sports Eugene. Now back to the James Crepea Show, presented by Dairy Mart. And I'm giving James the segment off here as we welcome into the Davis Roofing Hotline the brand new voice of the Portland Trailblazers, one Mr. Travis Demers. Travis, welcome to the James Crepea Show.
How are you?
Man, I am awesome. And tell me, how does it feel to be the third radio play-by-play voice in Portland Trailblazers history?
When you put it that way, and you talk about the 2 names that came in front of me, Bill Schonely for 28 years and Brian Wheeler for 21 years. I mean, just to even be in the conversation of having called games with names like that, I mean, it's incredible. It hasn't set in yet. I'm just trying to figure out my place right now, and it's exciting.
So how and where did you find out that you got the job?
I got a call from Jeff Curtin, the director of broadcasting with the Trailblazers, and I was making coffee. I had my son in one arm. He's 15 months old, and I'm making coffee with the other hand. And I feel my phone start to vibrate in my pocket, so I look down at my watch, and it says, Jeff Curtin's calling. I should probably answer this. So I put down my coffee and reached in. My phone was in my left pocket, and I reached in with my right hand, with my son in my left arm, and just trying not to drop him while I grabbed the phone and fumbled with it and took the call. And I had to sit down. I mean, I felt like I lost feeling in my body.
I believe it. I mean, that's an incredible phone call to take. And I got to compliment you there on the dexterity to be able to juggle the kid and the coffee and the phone to take the call.
You learn fast as a parent.
So for listeners out there, Travis has been filling in during last year for quite a bit. So it's not like you're coming from an area of, newness when it comes to taking care of the play-by-play for the Blazers. What things do you, now that the job is yours, what things do you want to bring to the broadcast that maybe you haven't been able to do before?
I've always tried to put my stamp on it while being myself. People have asked me a lot, well, Wheel said this, or Bill Schonely said that. What's your catchphrase? And I don't have one. Bill Schonely didn't go into that game saying, you know what, I'm going to say Rip City today, and that's going to be an icon in Portland, and Portland will be known as Rip City. He didn't say that going in. I'm not going to go in saying I'm going to say this when threes, when somebody hits a three. I'm not going to say this on dunks. I've got a few things that I say, and we'll see if, the spur of the moment, something happens, and then that's something that I latch onto. I just got to be myself. I'm not anybody else, and I just have to remember that if I do what I do, that's why I got the job in the first place.
So looking ahead to this season, the team's made a few changes. Tell me about your take on the 2019-2020 Blazers.
I love what they did. I've been covering this team for 16 years, and I've been waiting for a trade like we saw with the Whiteside deal. I think that was a great move because if you go into the season without a real center, and now that we know what the schedule is going to look like, and it's tough in the early part of the season, well, you're going to put yourself behind the eight ball. And the West is so tough this year that you can't afford to get down 5 or 7 games below 500 and then have to scrap back the way they've done in the past. So making that move gives them an instant defensive presence, a guy who can clean up around the rim and solves that problem. One of the other issues that we've seen, especially in the playoffs the last couple of years, is while Al-Farouq Aminu and Maurice Harkless are very good defenders and can do some great things, nobody respected them as three-point shooters. So that allowed other teams to double-team Dame, double-team CJ. And now whether it's Kent Bazemore, Rodney Hood, other guys that can mix in, that can hit threes, it'll open things up and allow Damian and CJ to be the best version of themselves. And I love what they've done with the bench, too. I mean, this is the best Trailblazers team that I've seen in 16 years of covering them. And with the West as wide open as it is this year, I love their chances.
We're speaking with new Portland Trailblazers radio play-by-play voice Travis Demers on the James Crepea Show on Fox Sports Eugene. Travis, tell me what you see in this team this season with all of those moves that you just spelled out. What is going to be the key for them to break through this season? What is it going to take with this team, the way it's formulated, with all the moves that have been made? What is it going to take to finally get them to put their foot down on the necks of other teams in the division and the conference?
Yeah, and look, you look around the West. Are the Blazers better than the Nuggets? I don't know. I mean, the Nuggets are one game better than the Blazers last year. Utah Jazz are really good. The Clippers are great. The Lakers got better. The difference between last year and this year is there's not one dominant force in the Golden State Warriors that everybody knows is going to win the West, or we all expected them to win the title last year. So I guess it depends also on what your definition of breaking through is. I mean, last year breaking through, getting the Western Conference Finals for the first time in 19 years, that was a breakthrough. But to get to the next level, what we saw in the New Orleans series 2 years ago, what we saw in the Golden State series last year, at times against Denver, really was just making sure that you've got enough space on the floor to not have Damian Lillard be double-teamed to take him out of his game. Well, Denver did that, but CJ was great in Game 7. Golden State knew they didn't have to worry about Aminu or Harkless or some of the other guys on the floor, so they put all their attention on Dame and CJ. And then if you have Nurk in the game, I mean, what he did before he got injured last year, he was a completely different player. He learned how to finish around the rim. He was great in the pick and roll. Just so many things that having the versatility on offense and the spacing and the three-point shooting that they didn't have in the postseason last year, I think that's the difference.
What do you feel was the bigger offseason pickup? Was it the trade for Whiteside, or was it the fact that they were able to keep Rodney Hood?
Well, it's tough because if you're looking at it in the scope of the whole season, it might be Whiteside. But when Nurkic comes back, how many minutes are those guys going to play? Or are you going to see 22 minutes for Whiteside and 25 for Nurk or whatever it might be? Getting Rodney Hood, I thought, was critical because you weren't going to be able to replace him on the open market. There just wasn't any money. So to have a guy who can play the 2, who can play the 3, who can create, we saw last year in post-up situations, he can shoot the 3. He can do so many different things with his presence that in the big picture, I think Rodney Hood is the bigger signing.
Now, going back to the centers, they have 3 on the roster. What do you think is going to happen at the trade deadline if, let's just say hypothetically, Nurk comes in a little ahead of schedule and starts playing to what he was last year? What do you see happening with the 3 centers that are on the roster?
And it's a tough question because they're unknowns with Hassan Whiteside's contract being up after this year. They're unknowns with Kent Bazemore's contract being up after this year. If those guys were long-term in terms of their contracts, I wouldn't change a thing because you can never have enough centers as the Blazers showed last year because there's always a chance somebody gets hurt. Or, when Nurk got hurt, then Enes Kanter got hurt in the postseason and they were thin at that position. There's always a chance they could make a big move, but it just depends on how this group is working together. I expect Whiteside to be everything that we want him to be. There are questions about, his mental makeup and things like that. Well, Damian Lillard wouldn't have signed off on that trade if he wasn't comfortable with it. So I think this team constructed how they are now is very good. It's just a question of whether or not this is the big picture team going forward and how Neil O'Shea sees that around February.
Do you think Whiteside comes in hungry enough that he's really going to make a big contribution?
I do for a couple of reasons. Being that it's a contract year, it's huge for him. And he doesn't want to go into a free agent season with a year, well, it'll be more than a year, but another year of questions about his game. And the fact that on the open market the last couple of seasons, centers have not been paid well. You look at DeMarcus Cousins, yes, he was coming off of an injury, but even the deal that Enes Kanter got in Boston was a small deal. You don't see the true centers getting paid the way that they did in the past. So I think for Whiteside, he's going to come in looking at this and say, yeah, he wants to be here and all that, but with the contract situation, he wants to make as much money as he can next year. And I think that's going to be one of the reasons why he comes out and just has one of the better, if not best year of his career.
Which new player that was drafted, which guy coming in do you see having the biggest potential or making the most immediate impact on minutes and time this year?
With the draft, I don't see Nasir Little really playing much. We didn't see Zach Collins a lot in his first year, and he was a top 10 pick until he proved in practice that he was going to be a defensive presence. If Nasir Little is going to get on the floor this year, it's going to be because of his defense. And I really like what his big picture outlook looks like. I just don't know how quickly that's going to come along. As far as the new guys, what Kent Bazemore does best is hit corner threes. And last year the Blazers were one of the worst teams in the league when it came to corner threes. That's going to open things up on the floor. I think he's going to get a ton of minutes. Really, all the new guys. I think Pau Gasol is going to play a little bit, but being able to mentor a young guy like Zach Collins is where his real value is going to come in. He's won championships. This team doesn't have a lot of veterans that have won, and I don't know if there's a better guy in the league in that situation to bring in than Pau Gasol, so I think he's going to be helpful. Tolliver is going to space the floor and hit threes. I really like – there's not a single move that they made that I look at and scratch my head and say, why did they do that? Even the move with Hazonia, bring him in at a veteran minimum deal. All of those moves served a purpose.
We're speaking with new Trailblazers radio voice Travis Demers here on the James Crepea Show on Fox Sports Eugene. All right, I'm going to leave you with this one. What do you think Portland will do? Give me a prediction. How do you think they'll do this season, given the fact that the entire Western Conference has upgraded?
That's kind of a loaded question, right? Now I work for the team. Now I've got a different aspect, a different way of looking at it. I think they're as good as anybody in the Western Conference, probably just a hair behind the Clippers in terms of the overall roster. but that doesn't mean they can't get to the finals. I think this is a 50-plus win team. All these predictions that have them at 40, 41, 42, I think are ridiculous. I think they're a 50-win team, and I think we're going to see them back in the Western Conference Finals.
He's the new radio play-by-play voice of the Portland Trailblazers, Mr. Travis Demers. Travis, thank you for coming on the James Crepea Show. I look forward to hearing you on Fox Sports Eugene for all of the Blazer broadcasts this season.
Thank you. Anytime.
And we thank Travis Demers for joining us here on the James Crepea Show. Steve conducting that interview with Travis. We thank Travis again for joining us. And you'll hear Travis all season long, as we are the affiliate of the Trailblazers. You'll hear him all season long here on Fox Sports Eugene, calling all the various Blazers games. So, again, congratulations to him for landing the gig. And you will hear him, if you are a Blazers fan and tune in, all season long right here. Also, if you want to try and get in your choice, last call for the Davis Roofing Hotline at 541-343-KORE, 541-343-5673 to let us know who you think got sauced, who had the worst weekend in particular, in either the NFL or college realm. If I had to pick, I would probably pick Chip Kelly over Jonathan Smith myself. Though the Jeremy Pruitt one is hard to avoid because mercy, that is bad. That is really, really bad.
I'm still sticking with the Browns. They looked terrible.
I can't pick an NFL team. I'm sorry. Not a whole team. I could pick a player, but I can't pick an NFL team in week one. Not in week one. I know they didn't look great, but, no. Now, you could tell me that because OBJ decided to wear, like a $50,000 watch or something on the field, which apparently they have to, the league is telling him, yeah, don't do that.
No, just the whole team played poorly. There was so much hype, and they just fell flat on opening day.
Yeah. Elsewhere in the college football realm, in game times are announced today all across the country. Here, a Pac-12 after dark's a problem for people. Well, in the SEC, sometimes early kickoffs are a problem. Alabama putting out statements saying that the 11 a.m. kick against Southern Miss in a couple of weeks, they're not too happy about that. One, it's too hot. Two, they had too many early kicks. They're not too happy about that. So everybody's got problems. See, it's not just Pac-12 after dark. Elsewhere, Bobby Petrino, former Arkansas coach, he apologized in Arkansas today for how things ended for him a few years ago. So needless to say, he's probably looking for a job somewhere else. Oakland Raiders coming up at 7 o'clock here on Fox Sports Eugene. You've been listening to the James Crepea Show. Hit the lights and lock the doors.